Okay, so this is the long-term review of my FK8 Civic Type R. I bought it back in 2018 and I've been driving it for about 3.5 years now. I have a little over 70,000 miles on it, and I think I have enough information to put together a good review for you guys. So without further ado, let's get this thing going. So as we get the car started here, we'll talk about the first thing, which is after 3.5 years, do I still find this car fun to drive? And I would say the answer to that is absolutely, 100%. It is still very fun to drive. It hasn't lost any of its spunk and tightness, and it still handles like a fighter jet on the road, basically. But yeah, absolutely, it's still fun to drive. So another thing is reliability too. Is this car reliable after 3.5 years and 70,000 miles? And I would say absolutely, yes. It is very reliable. It doesn't burn any oil. It hasn't broken any parts, nothing like that. I just have done the routine maintenance that you would do on a car over the course of 70,000 miles, just like any other car. The only thing, and it's not really a reliability thing, is this thing will absolutely shred front tires just because of what it is. It's a very powerful front-wheel drive car, and so you're gonna definitely want to set aside a little budget for tires because they're gonna wear out pretty quickly on you depending on how you drive. So let's talk about the gearing of this car a little bit. How's the gearing? It's short, I would say. The gears are very close together, which is good because that's what this car is designed for. It's a sporty car. The only issue that I have ever seen like driving around really is going between 30 and 40 miles an hour. You're kind of stuck between third and fourth because you'd like to shift up to fourth, but if you do, it ends up being in the low 2,000 RPM range in fourth gear. So if you slow down at all, you're going to be going back to third. So between 30 and 40 miles an hour, you're kind of playing between third and fourth gear a little bit. So how about the interior? How's that holding up? It's holding up pretty good. Nothing's falling apart, nothing's rattling. The seats are looking good. You can expect like normal wear on seats like that you would normally have. For example, like this seat, I'll talk about it a little more in depth later, but if you go to the gym at all and you're sweaty, and it doesn't matter if you like put a towel down or whatever, you're still going to get a little bit of sweat marks. That's not a problem. You can get those out pretty easily, honestly. Just some Sonax and stuff, and that should take care of it. And since we're at a dead stop here, we'll talk about another thing, which is how does the clutch feel? Is it slipping at all? Is it wearing out noticeably? And I would say no. The clutch is not wearing out at all in that regard. I mean, obviously the clutch is wearing over time, but it's not to the point where you're really noticing a difference while you're driving the car. So it feels pretty solid, which is a big thing because I actually was a new guy to driving a stick when I got this car. I didn't really know how to drive a stick very well, you know. I didn't daily drive one before, and I learned a lot driving this car, and it's held up very well through all the learning and everything I've done with it. How's the ride quality? I would say it's excellent, honestly. Like I said, it's tight, it's sporty, and it's super smooth when you're driving on the highway, like especially if you get it up to, you know, higher highway speeds. It's smooth as can be. In terms of like actually like driving over potholes and stuff like that, well, you know, it's a sports car, and if you know anything about sports cars and those kinds of suspension, it's about what you'd expect. It's not like driving a car with normal suspension. Like, you feel every little bump in the road pretty much with this. It's not horrible until you put it in plus R mode. If you put it in plus R on the street, you're definitely going to feel a lot. You're going to feel every bump for sure that way, but it's nothing to really be too concerned about. I felt a lot stiffer, worse suspensions for the street. This is totally acceptable, I would say, for everyday driving. So to kind of illustrate my point with the suspension, yeah, there's some potholes there. Yeah, it's a little bit rough when you hit stuff like that. What about the windshield? That's probably something a lot of people don't think about, but I think it's pretty important. So 2 months after I bought this car, I actually got a chip on the windshield, and it hasn't really expanded since then, to be honest. Like, it stayed pretty much the same size over 3.5 years, you know, multiple winters, daily driving this car, everything else. It hasn't expanded one bit. So I would say that's a testament to the quality of glass that they're using in these cars, which is a huge plus in my mind. A quick little quirk about this car, and I guess Civics in general, is it takes a year for this thing to heat up in the wintertime, like to the point where you're getting hot air out of the vents. Like, it just takes a long time to start feeling the warm air coming out. And I don't know if that's just how it is with 4-cylinder cars, but I've been in other ones with 4-cylinder engines and they heat up a lot faster than this thing does, to be honest. And I mean, I guess it's kind of a gripe because this doesn't have heated seats, so it's like, I mean, you want to be warm, obviously you don't want to be freezing cold, and it just takes a while to heat up. Talking about the infotainment system, if you know anything about Hondas, they're definitely notoriously bad at doing infotainment systems, and I would say that's true in this car as well. The only saving grace for that, really, and it's not really because of Honda, it's like Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. That's like kind of the redeeming factor for this, and it makes it a lot better. But yeah, I would say like Honda's infotainment system is a huge like drawback. It may have been advanced for like 2006, but it's just like completely horrible. I mean, I'll show you here a little bit. Yeah, it's not great. Like the menus and this stuff, it's honestly hard to use, and it's not really super user friendly, honestly. And I guess this brings up a point too about the map. It's kind of like a static map in that it's not really connected to anything, so like it has no clue what roads are open and which ones are closed, where the traffic's at, stuff like that. So it will not take you on the best route by any means, like when you're traveling places. If you don't want to use your GPS or your phone's data, then I guess it's an option, like you can use it. And honestly, it's cool the way that it displays the navigation in the display there, but it's just, I mean, it has potential, but it's just atrocious in the execution. So I would say that's a huge, you know, like it's not even worth including in this car. So another thing we'll touch on is the exhaust note of this car, which I'll demonstrate for you guys real quick here. Yeah, not bad, nothing to write home about though, I would say. Not spectacular by any means. If you're somebody that really likes to hear a good exhaust note, then maybe consider getting an aftermarket exhaust. But I mean, I guess Civics in general have never really been known for having a good exhaust note. You know, like harkening back to all the fart cans and stuff on the 90s Civics and stuff like that. But you can get some, in my opinion, that sound good on this car, but that's just one thing that's very lacking, is the exhaust note. Okay, so now we have the car parked, we can talk a little bit about the exterior, what's going on with this car. So first and foremost, I would consider this to be absolutely essential: mud flaps. If you like the paint on your car and you don't want it to get destroyed, this should be a day one thing that you do, is get mud flaps, because this has absolutely saved the side of my car in terms of the paint. Not so necessary in the back. You can see I didn't even put mud flaps back here because I don't think that's even necessary, and it really hasn't done anything to the paint back here, not including it either. So mud flaps in the front. Also, if you're planning on driving this in anywhere where there's not hot weather, or you just don't want to buy tires all the time, 18-inch wheels, 100% necessary, gotta do it. The brakes, they lasted me about 65,000 miles, I would say, for the front, and the rears, I would say about 40, if I had to guess. I can't remember exactly when they were replaced, but they last a good long time, as long as you're driving sensibly. Let's talk about rock chips a little bit. So rock chips are kind of one of those things where you can avoid them just by driving sensibly, and I've tried to do that as much as I can, but you can see like it just happens. And I guess that's a gripe that I have with Honda in general, is the paint chips easily sometimes from rock chips. But like I said, you can mitigate that pretty easily just by not tailgating people. But in general, the paint is held up extremely well. I usually try and get the car professionally detailed at least once a year, preferably twice. But besides that, no major complaints in terms of the paint or anything on the exterior. So how about the body panels? I would say they've held up well. There is panel gap there, but that's been there pretty much since day one. I would say that the panels aren't really separating. I haven't noticed anything, so it's just the way it is, I guess, with the build quality. It's just there's gaps, and maybe it's necessary to have gaps in the panels, I would assume, but I haven't noticed any additional separating of the panels, nothing coming apart, anything like that. So actually, moving to the headlights, these are LEDs, so they should be good for quite a long time. I've heard that they will be expensive to replace, but it would probably be a few years more down the road before those will need to be replaced, but they're still going strong. The rears are actually just plain old regular tail lights. There's no LEDs here, anything like that. And actually, that reminds me of one other thing, and this is unfortunate, but this badge is quite large, and as you can see, it's very subject to rock chips, and if it gets hit, it will crack and it's going to look a little bit rough. So I guess that's one thing to note as well. You'll have to excuse the mess here. I haven't cleaned these floor mats in a second, but kind of to illustrate what I was talking about with the seats, they do get a little bit stained if you go to the gym often. That's not a big deal. You can just wash it and it cleans out. I've washed these several times and it comes out every time, so nothing to worry about there. The steering wheel is good leather. One thing to note is if you carry a pocket knife or anything kind of sharp like that or jagged with a clip on it, you might end up scratching the bottom of your wheel. You just have to be careful with that. Let's see, what else? The pedals. How about the pedals? They've held up well. No creep or anything like that, no play, like they're still tight, everything like that, perfectly wonderful. Seatbelt, all good. Not really fading a whole lot, honestly, no stains or anything like that, so I would say holding up very well in terms of everything, honestly, especially being that I daily drive this, and I have been for the past 3.5 years, like I said, and I don't go easy on it or anything like that. I just drive it like a normal car, and it's holding up very well. So I can't really think of anything else to talk about with this car. I think I hit on a lot of things. If I left anything out, let me know in the comments. I can always do a follow-up video on this one if you'd like to know anything else. I can answer any questions, but I guess the final thing that comes to mind for me is, would I buy this car again if I had to? Like, if it was an option, like, and I could buy this car again, would I do it, going back in time? And the answer is yes, absolutely, 100% would buy it again. This is a fantastic car. I absolutely love it. It's been a joy to own every single day that I've driven it, and I'm going to drive this thing until the wheels fall off. So when I eventually do make it to 100,000 miles, you can expect a review then. And yeah, we're just gonna keep this thing going until it quits on me, and we'll see how long it lasts. But I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you for your time. If you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. I like doing cars and guns, and I'm producing content all the time now, so you should see some new videos coming out very soon. But yeah, once again, thank you for your time. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.